Welcome to Module 1 of the Cancer Toolkit. We'll learn what cancer is, we'll learn some risk factors and prevention, we'll touch on some specific cancers that we'll run throughout, and we'll also talk about barriers to seeking help and advice on what we can do to overcome those barriers. We'll talk about some of the cancer myths, and then at the end, we'll look at further sources of reliable information and help. So, early presentation of cancer symptoms and why it's so important that we do this. Cancer is a really natural occurring condition that will affect 1 in 2 of us in our lifetime, which is an astounding number when we consider that half the population will develop a cancer. And it's estimated up to 10,000 deaths in the UK can be avoided every year if efforts to improve diagnosis and early presentation are increased. That's 27 lives every day if people get to the doctors early with early signs and symptoms and make use of the cancer screening services that are available to us. The most commonly diagnosed cancers in the UK are prostate, lung, bowel, breast, and then we move into some cancers like cervical cancer, for which there are screenings. Now in Leeds we had a number of these screening services were below the national average for uptake. So we know that people weren't engaging with the screening as much as they can. And we know, and as these modules will show, that the more people engage with the screening services, the better chance of diagnosing cancer early. So the message that we put out is to keep it simple, and when working or talking with people about cancer, which is fine to do, it's another thing we want to sort, is that people don't feel uncomfortable talking. People don't sweep it under the carpet. People don't kind of talk about it in hushed terms, because it is something that affects so many people on a daily basis. And we really want to labour the message that early detection saves lives. So if something feels strange to somebody for maybe 3 weeks or more, we want them to go to the GP. We want them to find out what's occurring. So, what is cancer? What do we mean when we use the term cancer? And what it is very basically is it's a condition where some cells in your body go wrong. They grow and reproduce and they invade and destroy healthy tissue. All cells in the body have a lifespan, and that's determined by DNA. DNA determines how long a cell will live and when it will die. And with a cancer, the cell stops listening to that DNA. It stops listening to what it should be doing, and it goes off and it does its own thing. It goes rogue and it encourages other cells to do the same until eventually we've got a clump of these cells, and that's what somebody would call a tumour. That's where a tumour would come from. Now, there are over 200 different types of cancers because there are over 200 different types of body cells, and any one of those cells can turn cancerous. And over time, if a cancer is left untreated, it can then spread and affect other parts of the body, known as metastasize. So that's what we're trying to avoid by getting in early, by using the screening programs, and by getting checked out as soon as we have early signs and symptoms. This little image here, these were 2 characters on a TV show in the 70s called Play School. And all it shows is, over time, the replication of a bad image or a corrupted image gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And that's really what's kind of happening with the replication of cells, of cancer cells. So the sooner we get in and we get that sorted out, the better, really. And there are certain inherited factors that we can't change as we move through life. We're born with them, or we grow into them. Things like age, things like inherited genes or a family history. We kind of born with them. They're the cards that we're dealt. But how we play those cards can be things that are external to us, things like lifestyle, alcohol, smoking, sun exposure, weight, diet. These are all things that can have an adverse effect on whether or not we'll develop a cancer. And they reckon up to maybe 40% of cancers can be avoided if we live lifestyles that lend themselves to kind of minimising those risks. There's also things like being exposed to chemicals. You know, we have a lot of air pollution that can also cause problems for us, or exposure to certain industrial situations, you know. So some barriers to cancer diagnosis that puts people off, because lots of people won't go, and the easiest way not to be diagnosed with cancer is don't get a cancer diagnosis. Doesn't mean the cancer's still not there, but people often have this thing about putting their head in the sand. It's one of the few conditions where people will say, oh, I'd rather not know if I had cancer. And if you said that about another illness like cataracts or gangrene, it would sound ridiculous to say, I'd rather not know if I had cataracts, because we know that you would go on to become blind. But with cancer, people have so much myth and superstition around it that they often just want to back away. There's this fear of finding out that they've got that diagnosis. And some people are embarrassed about talking about it or the procedure of being checked. There are lots of people with a prostate that simply won't go along and get their prostate checked by the doctor because they believe that the doctor's going to put a finger up the bum, the digital rectal examination, and they don't go. They're not willing to do that. And because of that, they are literally dying of embarrassment later on when that cancer develops and turns stage 3 to stage 4. So to get in early, to have that procedure done, which is now being phased out anyway. If somebody goes to the doctor now about their prostate, in the first instance, it will be a PSA test. It will be a prostate-specific antigen test that they will do. People also kind of not sure what to trust in, what's true, what's not. Some people I've heard say that they believe that self-checking for breast cancer, the pushing, actually causes breast cancer. Some people believe after the recent COVID vaccines and everything that went on there, that kind of you can't trust the medical profession, that they pick up unreliable sources of information from the internet and then they add this to their own narrative. And there's all manner of things out there. And later on we may show you that, some newspapers have said that being left-handed causes cancer. Some have said that drinking soup causes cancer or wearing bras cause cancer. So really we want people to look at what's really true, what's reliable, what do I know to be true. Also, people have white coat syndrome. Some people have a genuine fear of hospitals, maybe due to an early childhood experience or just in general. They don't like it, they go to the doctors and immediately their blood pressure's on the rise. It may be that they feel they're going to fail a test and they've always been a high flyer academically. So they really don't like it and they will do anything they can to stay away from hospital. And then there are just personal and religious belief systems that can sometimes put people off going along and being checked. Or then when it comes to looking for treatments to cancer, people may then stray away or stay away from the medical model and believe that there are other holistic models that may work better. So what can we do to reduce our risk of getting cancer? That's the dream, the prevention side of things. And what we can do is we can reduce his risk by a number of things that we kind of know. I'm not going to assume everybody knows, but some of these will be really common sense. So one is we cut down or we stop smoking. And if we do smoke, the research looks to show that if we move to a vape, it's less harmful. So vaping's less harmful than smoking, although vaping still carries its own risks. Another one is reducing as alcohol. As a sort of nation, we tend to drink a lot. The British people tend to drink a lot. We wet the baby's head and we raise a glass to the dearly departed, and it's kind of at every social event in between. It's glamorized, it crops up in soap operas. Our society is saturated by alcohol and we need to be reducing that. And they found that one of the risk groups, maybe unsurprisingly, is professional women. Professional women started drinking more at home. They were drinking wine when they got home to relax after a busy day. And before they knew it, they were maybe drinking half a bottle, sometimes a bottle of wine a night. 7 bottles of wine a week, maybe more on the weekends and things. But we need to reduce that if we can. Very few people stay within the government guidelines for weekly units. And alcohol, of course, makes us want to consume more. So when we drink, as good intentions tend to be washed away, and as drunk selves don't really make the right decisions that as sober selves intended to do. Also, we need to move around more. Our lifestyles, our biology is not caught up with our sociology. There was a time that we used to move all the time. We had to move if we wanted to eat. We had to move to avoid risk. And now we spend an awful lot of time sat down. There was a time we had to run maybe 15 miles to catch dinner and bring it back to camp and eat it. And now you can get Greggs on Deliveroo. So, we need to physically get up and move around more as body thanks us for that. And we need to do that whilst eating a balanced diet. And that's just, we're not taking any specific thing away. It's all things in moderation. But we do need to be getting those fruits and vegetables in, those green leafy vegetables. We know they're good for us. You know, there's a reason we were told to eat them when we were younger. They do us bodies great. And you know the difference between just feeling full and feeling nourished. You know when you've eaten something that's nourishing. Finally, on this little section, we also need to keep to what we consider a healthy weight. Now, some people naturally carry more weight than others. Some people are less. Some people are known as hard gainers. They go to the gym. They struggle to put on every ounce of muscle, whereas some people feel that they can just inhale calories and put on weight. But we kind of know when we're at the right weight for ourselves. They often call it as fighting weight, a sort of boxing term. So if we feel that we're not at the right weight, we need to use what we've just talked about with the activity, the reducing alcohol, the balanced diet, the moving around more, to kind of get to where we need to be and be that best physical version of ourselves. So physical activity doesn't just mean, going to the gym. Some people feel, well, I'd hate the gym. I don't want to go. I don't like the rowing machine and things. Then that's not the activity for you, because the best activity to keep you healthy is the activity that you actually do. So that might be that you enjoy walking. We would always encourage someone, if you're going to walk somewhere, walk like somebody owes you money and you're 5 minutes late and you don't think they're going to wait for you. Get a wriggle on, get moving quickly and walk with purpose. Also, it might be, have a little dance around, do some little squats while the kettle's boiling. When you go up to the toilet, maybe go up, come down, go back up again. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, keep moving around. And there's an example of a few different things there on screen that you might consider. But doing an exercise with a friend can help. They keep you on point. They make sure that you turn up. But do it. Do make sure you do it and build it into your life. Don't have it as an optional extra. And this little graphic here just shows a few different ways that we can reduce that risk. And you can see there right at the top is stop smoking. Smoking is the only a product that you can buy in a supermarket that will harm you if you follow the manufacturer's instructions. There is no good comes from it. And it's a strange thing. It's a weak addiction physically, but it's a really strong habit because you do it maybe 100, 200 times. If you smoke a cigarette and you have 20 hits from each cigarette and you smoke 10 a day, that's 200 times you kind of train your brain to do this habit. But there is lots out there that will help. There are lots of support groups. You can talk to your GP about stopping. And when you finally stop, you'll wonder why you ever continued. And if you go down here, you'll see some of the others that we mentioned. You can see the alcohol, the healthy weight. And also, sun exposure can be a thing. And cutting down on salt. Although salt is important for day-to-day health, we would be in a bad way if we didn't have salt. But it tends to be in our Western diets. There's a little bit too much built in with processed foods and things. So really, just summing up there for prevention, we want to eat a diet rich in vegetables and fibre. We want to keep active. We want to maintain that healthy weight. We don't want to be smoking. If we do, reduce it to a vape and then maybe reduce the vape to just water vapour and then ask yourself, what am I doing? I'm sucking on a tube of water vapour. And you'll realise it's just a little oral fixation that you have that you need to break there. Drink less alcohol or none at all. Limit sun exposure, but we would be no good if we stayed in the dark all the time. It does do us good to get out in the sun for a short period, but laying down in the sun for hours on end with a bid to get a tan is something we'd be trying to avoid. And if something doesn't feel right, then get checked out. Don't wait. Don't think, it'll be okay. Let's find out what it is, okay? So just a few little things here, sort of media, myth or fantasy, a little quiz if you like to have a little think, just to get you thinking how the media portrays cancer. So it has been said in the past that mobile phones can cause cancer. That was a headline that one newspaper read. So what do you think? Has something popped into your own head while you're listening to this? Have you thought, oh yeah, I've heard that myself? This was from the Mail Online, and they ran that it may cause cancer. One's World Health Shift after a year of contradictory claims and things. Well, mobile phones have been around an awful long time now, and we're not seeing huge increases in certain cancers related to holding those phones to us heads. But it sells headlines, doesn't it? Lots of people use phones. If they see this headline, they may well pick up the newspaper and buy it. Another one that was ran was bras cause cancer. Wearing a bra can cause a cancer, and the longer you wear a bra, the more that might cause cancers. if you read through this, if you care to. It just shows here, the odds of getting breast cancer increased dramatically the longer women wore bras. Well, there is a tie-in that people tend to wear bras. They start in their early teens and they wear them throughout their lives. And breast cancers tend to develop later on in life for women. But this is just tying two things together that don't necessarily come together. You know, it's like saying that wearing hats causes cancer. If lots of people wear hats, it's just a thing that they are trying to tie together for the news story right there. There was another story that said that sandals and flip-flops can cause cancer. And where this is leaning into, as you might imagine, is that the top of your foot, which is a very sensitive part of your skin that very rarely gets exposure to the sun, if you suddenly start walking around in blistering hot weather for weeks and months on end, then you may cause damage to that part of your foot. But in general, buying flip-flops and wearing them out and about does not cause cancer. Sun exposure causes cancer. So some of you will have maybe burnt your feet doing this on holiday. You'll have looked down and realised that you've got sore by accident. So put some sun cream on there, be savvy. Another thing was that water in plastic bottles might cause cancer. So what do you think? Do you think there's a pattern here to the ones I'm putting up? So that's a myth as well, yeah. This was a whole thing about plastic bottles and whether or not they can cause cancer. But we've been using them for years. And someone might argue, yeah, well, there's microplastics in them. And the research still goes on about that. We are not here to say that microplastics cannot be troublesome to health. You can't catch cancer from someone else, is the last one we just wanted to touch on. Some people avoid cancer and people with cancer and everything to do with cancer. But you can't catch cancer from somebody else, okay? And this was just a little Daily Mail song that Russell Howard came up with, and which then goes on and talks about just how many things some newspapers, the Daily Mail in particular, have said cause cancer.
It's refreshing to hear a positive food story, because usually when you go through the papers, it's things like bacon will kill you, if you drink red wine you will die, ships will rape your dog. The Daily Mail is the worst. Every day there's a different fear-mongering story. Have you seen how many things they genuinely claim could lead to cancer? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Age, air, alcohol, aspirin and calcium, ham, honey, eggs, dogs, dieting and soup. Being woman, being man, bubble bath and food from cans, being black, wearing glass with handiness, speedy cars, estrogen, climate change, baby food, the menopause, beef, beer, pizza, pork, cereal and Worcester sauce, childlessness, children, vitamins and bacon, chocolate, retirement, deodorant, Facebook.
The Mail says that these cause cancer. But it's only rumours that they give you tumours. They've got a big balls to print it, 'cause it's 60 pages of scary bullshit.
So, please, when it comes to contacting your GP, we understand that after COVID, people are really struggling to get in to see their doctors. And it all started really by the whole idea of that you would get seen the same day by a GP, which sounds great. You want to see a doctor, they'll get you in and see you the same day. And it was a nice idea, but in reality, you might be number 28 in the queue when you phone up in the morning. And if you're busy, you've got a busy day planned, that can be really difficult. You can't tell them, can I make an appointment for Thursday? They don't do that because they don't hit their target now. But please, keep on, persevere if there's something you're concerned about. Or one good tip is, if you can, walk up to your doctor's surgery at 8 o'clock in the morning when they open, and you'll often be given an appointment there and then. You won't have to queue for so long. But they may want to talk to you over the phone, they may want a video chat. It will depend on what your symptoms are and how concerned you are, really. But if something feels unusual for you, please just go to your GP and have a chat and find out what's happening. And 9 times out of 10, it won't be what you're worried about. It won't be cancer, it'll be something else. It may be a cyst or whatever else. But let's find out. Let's not just put things off and put us heads in the sand, okay? On the back of this stuff we told you was unreliable, like some of the Daily Mail headlines, these are where you want to be going. You want to be looking at Macmillan, Cancer Research UK, Copperfield, which, as you might think, encourages people to breast check once a month. Prostate Cancer UK is there as well, fantastic organisation. And we've put ourselves there at leedscancer.com because we like to think we have lots of information on our website that you will find useful as well. This now completes Module 1 of the Cancer Toolkit. Please now go on to do the assessment before moving on to Module 2. Thank you.